Welcome to R&R Living Life. In this segment, Rick and I make our way to Georgetown in the middle of the Gulf through country that we had never covered before, though we had lived north of Georgetown near the confluence of the Etheridge and Ironsley rivers years ago, so we're looking forward to seeing what the country was like, especially around the Gilbert River. We were leaving behind a small community shaped by tales of grit and determination, where miners sweated under the blazing outback sun in the hunt for precious gold, but also a land where challenges were faced by those dreamers in their quest for wealth. We had caught sight of rusty relics of machinery that once echoed with the sounds of hard work, and enjoyed some of the stories etched into this rugged land. We have been through some isolated communities on our travels. Though vastly different, they all seem to have a strength about them, even though the towns are in decline, with many buildings left vacant. These communities show true grit and determination, and the willingness to face whatever comes their way. Our journey today will take us nearly 150 kilometres across some of the most interesting savanna country. We saw a variety of birds of prey along the road, from eagles, brown falcons, Nikan kestrels and kites. I have tried on countless occasions to photograph an eagle as we travel, but have never been successful in having one that I think is clear enough to include. The Gulf Country, or Gulf Savannah, is generally seen as the country between the Barkly and Flinders highways and the Kennedy and Peninsula Development roads. We crossed into the Etheridge Shire that covers an area of approximately 39,000 square kilometres of the Gulf Savannah region, with the towns of Georgetown, Forsyth, Ironsley and Mount Surprise. Rick and I were familiar with both Georgetown and Mount Surprise, and were looking forward to visiting Forsyth and Ironsley. The country didn't look too bad, with some green pick in places, and the cattle were in good condition. We came across thickets or woodlands of lancewood, a species of wattle native to Queensland and the Northern Territory, on the rockier, steeper slopes, or growing in the nutrient-poor soils, with occasional stands of narrow-leaved ironbark and Darwin woollybutt, with an understory of annual firegrass species like forest bluegrass and spinifex. Here in North Queensland it is common in semi-arid and temperate areas, with the wood hard and heavy and a rich dark brown with pale sapwood. Due to its strength, straightness and resistance to termites, the wood is extensively used for yard rails, fencing and other structural applications on rural properties. We crossed Little River, Marsupial Creek and Spring Creek, all still with waterholes, while Lancewood appeared to be just a dry creek bed where it crossed the road. By the amount of speargrass that was along its banks, I would gather that it had had a good wet season, with follow-up rain, for it still had green underneath. Ventures Creek had quite a big waterhole, so I assume it was a more permanent water source than those we had previously seen. I had never considered what the road or the country would be like through this area, but had not expected so many hills. We seemed to have left the long straight stretches behind and were now driving up and down rises and around sweeping bends. In some places the edges of the road were very broken, while in others the drop between the bitumen and the gravel was quite deep. When I think of the Gulf Country, I suppose I have always thought of it as a vast low-lying tropical savanna region, not the ranges, rolling hills and plateaus we were crossing. Although when I really think about it, the area is the drainage basin for the Norman, Gregory and the Flinders rivers, all originating in some part of the Great Dividing Range, and all entering the Gulf, with all three rivers forming part of the same connected drainage basin in the Gulf Country. On reaching the Gilbert River, we stopped in at the rest area on the eastern side of the river. What a huge river the Gilbert is! Not just here at the bridge where we crossed, but also the catchment of over 22,000 square kilometres. It is amazing to think that about 455 square kilometres, or a third of the total catchment, is a vast estuarine delta, approximately 100 kilometres wide, that largely consists of tidal flats and mangrove swamps that discharges into the Gulf of Carpentaria, north of Corumba. Then to think that the distance from here at the crossing to where it discharges into the Gulf is just over 100 kilometres of river as well. Most of the basin is natural grassland used for grazing cattle at an extremely low stocking rate, in line with the very low nutritional quality of the feed available, while in the upper reaches soils are more fertile red cracking clays, but erode very easily under the erratic rainfall. The Gilbert River, when combined with the Islay River, is the largest river system in northern Australia and is one of the relatively few completely free-flowing river systems of its size in the world. The Gilbert River drains the eastern slopes of the Gregory Range, part of the Great Dividing Range southeast of Croydon and southwest of Georgetown, with the western slopes of the Newcastle Range north of Hughenden, and extends approximately 400 kilometres in an east-west direction. The ranges are located in an area of ephemeral watercourses and stony sandstone ridges, lightly vegetated with Darwin bullybut, a tall tree that is endemic to northern Australia, acacias or wattles, and spinifex ridges, while further down the ridges are areas of melaleucas, commonly paperbarks, honey myrtles, bottle brushes, or tea trees are found. As we drove closer to Georgetown, we could see the Cumberland Chimney, a historic 19th century square black chimney erected in 1889 to carry smoke from large boilers driving batteries of stampers crushing gold-bearing rock at the Cumberland mining operation. We stopped in to check out this popular donation-based free camping area and was surprised by the man-made water lily-filled lake with numerous cattle grazing around the edges. The site itself is located on the remnants of the former bustling mining town of Cumberland, and specifically the Cumberland Gold Mining Company. Only the chimney from the Cumberland Battery remains of this once thriving mining town. Cumberland was started when gold was discovered in 1872 and grew into one of the major gold producers in the Etheridge goldfields. The Cumberland Company dammed the nearby Cumberland Creek to create a permanent water supply for the township. The mine and tramway closed in 1897 and the town's population declined, further declining after the worker shortage during World War I, and is now a ghost town. Rick and I spent quite some time wandering the site, enjoying the scenery, bird life, and even coming across a large goanna making its way down to the water's edge. What an amazing place to camp, one that I think we will put on the come back to list. I have been surprised by the country between Croydon and Georgetown, as it was quite varied, not at all what I had expected. In places undulating to rugged slopes as well as small plains of what appeared to be loose, unconsolidated soil, sand and silt, and clay country along streams and creeks that appeared to be highly fertile in areas by the grass cover, while other areas, especially the slopes, were harder country often covered in lancewood, open forest country and mixed savanna woodlands. We crossed Durham's Creek, once a historic mining locality. Rubber vine seems to have made its way along many of the creeks in the area. Native to Madagascar, rubber vine is a vigorous climber with twining whip-like shoots that grow rapidly and smothers riparian vegetation, forming dense thickets often completely dominating the vegetation. It can grow unsupported as an untidy shrub with many stems and spreads outwards from waterways, river flats and creeks onto hillsides and pastures. The plant is poisonous to cattle, while the seeds are spread by water and wind, though germination needs favourable temperature and adequate soil moisture. We had noticed some as we crossed Spring Creek east of Croydon. The road between Croydon and Georgetown, the Gulf Development Road, has been an interesting drive, considering it is Highway 1, but not part of the National Highway Network, and the only sealed road linking Cairns and Normanton. It is said to be sealed for all its length, but there are many sections of the road which is only narrow single-lane bitumen with gravel shoulders, with sections highly susceptible to flooding, not only at the Gilbert River, but over other creeks and causeways we had crossed. On arriving in Georgetown, a gold mining hub in its heyday, located on the Etheridge River, now famed for gemstones and surrounded by rich beef cattle country, the district being known for Brahman and Droughtmaster cattle, we made camp at the caravan park before taking a drive around town to see what we could remember. Not much, it turned out. It just seemed smaller and emptier than we remembered. In 1869, more than 3,000 prospectors were on the fields known as Etheridge, with the town of Georgetown established on the site of the diggings. Originally known by the name of Etheridge, the town's name was changed in 1871 to honour an early gold commissioner, Howard St George. Following the discovery of the Overland Telegraph Reef, the township of Etheridge was just one of several shanty towns which mushroomed on the huge Etheridge goldfield. Following the publication early in 1869 of discoveries of gold on the Gilbert River, causing a rush of miners to the area, the town exploded into life with schools, a telegraph repeating station, and by 1876 a reported 28 hotels. These were times when plenty of gold was found and mines were put on the London stock market to raise more money to float the gold mines. As in many places around Australia associated with gold, Chinese miners also prospected, and this included the construction of one or two josh houses. In those early years, the population and fortunes fluctuated following the discovery of gold in other areas of North Queensland in 1873 and 1876. However, by mid-1878, miners were returning to the Etheridge goldfield and Georgetown settled into an administrative and commercial role, serving Etheridge pastoralists and a number of London-based mining companies. By 1900, grazing had replaced gold mining as the region's primary source of income. On our drive around town, we checked out the Antbed House, a heritage-listed detached house built circa 1890. The house was probably built as a mine manager's residence and is the only surviving dwelling constructed of bricks made of ant bed from termite mounds. Ant bed was used more commonly for floors, tennis courts and mortar of slab buildings, but rarely for bricks. While we were in town, we visited the Terrestrial Centre, containing the Ted Elliott Mineral Collection, a mind-boggling display, well worth stopping to look at. There were many other interesting historical features around town, from the restored Shire Hall built in 1908 and restored in 1998, Savannah House, the restored ex-clerk of the court's dwelling, the Sir William Wallace Masonic Temple with its exposed corrugated iron cladding, and the Catholic Church established in 1913. We had made our way out to see the murals on the water tower, but were a little disappointed as it was in need of a good repaint, though we did enjoy the murals on the side of the butcher shop and at the end of the street. Down near the Etheridge River is a 5-head stamper battery and other mining gear the Nugent brothers used until 1941. After a good night's sleep, we made our way south to Forsyth, originally called Finnegan's Camp, approximately 50 kilometres from Georgetown, involving a mix of sealed and unsealed formed gravel sections of road, sometimes narrow in places. On the whole, it was a great road, though did have to watch the corners as they were a little sharp, and taking them too quickly would have sent the back end out. Rick was sure enjoying driving on the gravel, one of the best we had driven on, even with some corrugations. The country was amazing, and not at all what I had expected. Being on the southern end of the Gulf, I had thought it would be flatter, so was surprised by the number of hills we were seeing, only to find out that we were travelling along the western edge of the Newcastle Ranges, a 150-kilometre long, north-south running volcanic mountain range. The rocky country featured low hills, large granite-like rock sediments, and is part of the scenic Savannah Way. The vegetation was a mixture of eucalypt woodlands with pockets of lancewood, along with open woodlands of Georgetown box and ironbark. We crossed a number of waterways and gullies, some washed out at the bottom, and Branch Creek that had a cement bitumen causeway. It was a really enjoyable drive. This was very different country than the lower eastern Gulf region where we had both worked, where the river country, subject to periodic flooding, supported natural pastures, while the black soil plains were covered in large stands of both Mitchell and Flinders grasses, along with native pasture and herbage. Such a contrast between the two areas, both within the lower central Gulf. The cattle, though, looked in excellent condition. Cattle grazing in the area utilises native pastures and focuses on Brahman and crossbred cattle, which are well suited to the tropical climate. Grey Brahmans are the most prevalent breed in the region, prized for its extreme heat resistance, ability to walk long distances, and tick resistance, but other breeds like Drought Masters, for their adaptability and good temperament, Charbres and Charolais, crossbreeds used to increase size and growth rates in the herd, bring benefits to high-quality beef production in the harsh, dry and tropical environment of the Gulf country. Rick and I always enjoy seeing the cattle, no matter what area of our travels we are in. There has only been one herd this year that has not been in good condition that we have seen, and that was in the south of the country early on in our travels. Rick and I will leave you here as we arrive in Forsyth for this segment. Join us next time as we explore the town, before making our way to Ironsley and checking out the magnificent Copperfield Gorge. Give us a thumbs up if you have enjoyed this episode. We would love to hear your comments. Cheers for now. Live life to the full. Rick and Rosemary. R&R Living Life.